Hi, everyone. Calling this meeting of the Academic Senate of Santa Barbara City College to order. Today is Wednesday, December 8th, 3:02 p.m. Acknowledging that it is, the tail end of what I consider the longest semester in the history of higher education. And then the fall and this pandemic and all of that, it's nice to see you all here. I would like to end promptly at 5 p.m. today. As I would like to remind all of us, there is no such thing as an educational emergency, and the business can wait. So let's finish up what we can to ride out this year, and then let's send each other off on a good note of not going over, and then we'll pick up where we left off next year, and as everyone does in a new year, start new with other things. All right, so let's look at today's agenda. Order docs. Okay, so starting first with our Academic Senate community values. So this one's a favorite of mine, which is number 5, commit to courageous and difficult conversations. We wish to challenge something that has been said. We will challenge the idea or the practice referred to, not the individual sharing it. We also must be open to people challenging what we say as individuals at the table and decentering ourselves when discussing an issue. As senators, we are in faculty leadership roles, and we must be willing to detach ourselves from our role and accept that others may challenge our perspective. And I'll ad lib our practices. We will hold ourselves and each other accountable for engaging in difficult conversations and ensure that we don't seek to end the discussion that is difficult or uncomfortable. And I think whether we have this difficult discussions or we are discussing specific practices and we are questioning and challenging those practices, I think that we should be open to that discussion for our students and for the betterment of all of us on campus. Zoom meeting guidelines, unless it's public comment at a time that's called for, only senators that are acknowledged can speak. If you wish to contribute to the conversation, please make sure you raise your virtual hand in the Zoom meeting control functions. Also, while the accommodation has not been asked for ahead of the meeting, and the Zoom captions are not, as I understand it, 504 or ADA compliant, there is now a captioning function in the college's Zoom meeting controls. So if you are somebody that would like to turn on that feature in this meeting or any meeting, including ones that you are hosting, that feature is now available to all of us. So the meeting agenda has been posted and distributed. So unless I hear otherwise, we will take the agenda today as shared. Okay, and I'm hearing no response to that. So assuming that we will accept it as posted, which brings us now to item 3.1, our public comment guidelines. I did not receive any prior requests for public comment. I suspect Chris did not either, or else she would have mentioned it to me. If anyone is here from the public and would like to give public comment now, please indicate you'd like that by raising your virtual hand in your Zoom controls. Okay, right on. I am seeing no indication that anyone would like to provide public comment, so we will move along. The meeting minutes from our December 1st Academic Senate meeting have been posted and shared. Prior to approval, is there anyone that would like to make any revisions, edits, or updates to our posted minutes? Okay, and I'm seeing no indication that anyone wants to edit those. So unless I hear otherwise, I will accept the meeting minutes from December 1st as posted and distributed. Okay, President's report. Now, I know I promised a written report, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this has been the longest semester in the history of higher education. And so it just didn't happen again. So I'm going to be providing an oral report. Now I did meet somewhere in the middle because I at least wrote it down for me. So I have that for you. All right, so a couple of these really aren't mine. I just want to make sure that the Senate is aware so that you can share it out with faculty so that they are aware, so that the information has been shared, because it's been shared and shared and shared again. But I'm wondering how many people pay attention to emails or attachments or this, that, or the other, which is so easy to do when we're all so overwhelmed. So I just want to put a couple of things out there in front of you to say, hey, put this in front of your faculty for sure. Okay, so as we approach the spring semester, we are replacing Healthy Roster. So Healthy Roster is the system that sends us out the daily emails and or text for submission of our I think the word is adaptation of our symptoms or lack thereof. So we are moving away from Healthy Roster. We are moving towards a system called Cleared 4. So the reason why we are doing this is because, well, we're doing it for a lot of reasons, but one of them is because Cleared 4 will also allow for the vaccine confirmation to be also in the system. So right now, for those of you on campus, you know, you arrive on campus, you show the green screen that you get from your Healthy Roster survey submission, and then you also have to show proof of vaccination. And so for those of us that have been coming to campus regularly, that proof of vaccination is through a green sticker that gets placed on. For us, it's faculty or staff ID. For students, it's their student ID. But for those that are just visiting campus, they have to have proof of vaccination and all of that. So this system is overhauling Healthy Roster. We're bringing in Cleared 4. It should be better in a lot of ways. But I also know that it is a little annoying to get used to one workflow and then switch over, right? So that switchover is happening over the Christmas, winter break, excuse me. Chris Garcia would like me to remind faculty to put in front of their divisions that part-time faculty flex is due by December 15th. So today she sent out reminders to department chairs who have faculty in their departments that have not submitted that. Faculty who have not submitted their flex by this date. Now, right now I'm speaking part-time faculty only for the fall semester, but faculty that have not submitted their proof of flex hours up to their requirement. And for part-time faculty, it's all different because it's proportional to the amount of teaching that they're doing. Their pay will be docked, meaning minus money. Okay, so that's why Chris is trying to let people know, and I'm putting it in front of you as well. It's just a nice thing to do. Hey, Trisha, can we wait until the end? Or okay, so you probably have a question on this, yeah?
Just a clarification in case any non-credit don't. So you're talking about part-time credit faculty have to do the flex. I just want to clarify in case anyone's watching from non-credit.
Got it, thanks. Right, so if you owe flex hours, you have to thank you, Trisha, you have to submit them by December 15th. So I know that this is the responsibility of department chairs. This isn't necessarily a Senate consideration. It's just that as senators, we put a lot of important information in front of our faculty. And so this one would be a solid thing to add so that everybody is aware. Okay, let's see. I have been, I'm a little concerned about Senate communication and delegation of work to Senate subcommittees, which is why so many ad hoc committees have been created and why there has been overlapping work between some Senate subcommittees and also like operational committees. So I spoke with steering about this and like kind of spitballed different ways of dealing with this. And so Senate steering and subcommittee chairs. So Senate subcommittees are subcommittees like Faculty Partnership for Students, Student Success, FPSS, Academic Policies, Instructional Technology Committee, P&R, Planning and Resources, Committee of Faculty Resources, CAC, Curriculum is also a Senate subcommittee, and faculty sabbatical leave and recognition. So we're going to start in early January. We're going to kick off the semester with a Senate steering Senate subcommittee chairs meeting, and we're going to try and have one of those meetings at least once a month. Hopefully that helps a little bit with communication and efforts and delegation of work and things like that. Please remind your faculty that the call for Academic Freedom Ad Hoc Committee is open. We're going to hit the ground running in the spring. Also, I reported on this last week. I think it's important to mention again, 5 faculty members, no, that's not right, 4 faculty members and the director of the FRC, Rob Brown, will be engaging in a cultural curriculum audit. So the 5 of us are basically tagging on to Long Beach City College's cultural curriculum audit cohort. So thank you to Dr. Kathy Scott for making that connection to us. We're going through the curriculum audit that they do, seeing what it looks like, doing it for our own courses, kind of fleshing that out with the intention of bringing that back to Santa Barbara City College and institutionalizing it here. What will that look like? Still to be determined. However, I think Tara Carter and I are at least on the same page with this for sure, in that as curriculum updates come through CAC, that this curriculum auditing would be a requirement of that COR update that goes through there. So more on that later. Again, we're still in the infancy, but we're moving forward with that soon, and we're excited about that work. Okay, so something that's going to come to the Senate in the spring, but I want to just kind of plant the seed now so that we're aware of it. The AP administrative policy for distance education will be coming to the Senate. Specifically, there were some legal updates required by the League of California Community Colleges. So they were implemented. If you guys remember, I was sharing out about the Board of Governors changes that were happening there. And so they were implemented. And so now it's trickling down, and now we need to update our administrative procedure to incorporate those legal changes. However, we also have some changes that are perhaps unique to this round of updates, not unique to Santa Barbara City College at all. Excuse me, not unique to us, but not California Community College education. In our administrative procedure, we are going to incorporate language for correspondence courses. So let me explain the difference. Distance education courses are courses that can be taught in a synchronous or asynchronous modality, typically through an electronic means, where you have a LMS and course content available, usually in electronic format, and that it can be done remotely, hence distance education. Correspondence courses or correspondence education is also a type of distance education. However, correspondence courses are done not necessarily electronically, although you could entertain it electronically via email. But it's essentially done with physical resources like paper that you can touch, and is done through the snail mail. We had some distance education emergency addenda to teach correspondence courses at our county jail. And we are looking to continue that and have a formal curriculum acceptance of correspondence courses in our AP, and we currently don't have that. And so that's why that's there. Now, when this comes to the Senate, and again, all that's been done is suggested edits and administrative policy. Okay, nothing has been approved, just this idea is coming forward to the Senate as the vetting, okay? But as the Senate considers that, please know that a resolution will be prepared and shared out in early January so that the Senate can endorse first the concept of correspondence courses, and then we can wordsmith the procedural language, and we can figure out apportionment, and we can figure out where the classes are and who's going to teach them, and maybe create a curriculum approval subcommittee of instructors. Sounds like it's going to be mostly our part-time faculty that are doing these courses, but having that subcommittee of people that actually teach correspondence then be the ones that are reviewing the curriculum, similar to what we're doing in distance education curriculum approvals, right? You actually want people that know and have done distance education to approve that curriculum. So lots of moving parts, lots to do there, but I think that it's an important concept for the Senate to approve, which is why I'm going to be recommending the resolution first for consideration, and then we'll work out all of the kinks. So more on that later. We can discuss it. If everybody's having like a pearl clutching moment over this, like we can talk about that in the spring. Just know that that's one of the things that is happening. We're pulling in different stakeholders. I met with, Matt Kay yesterday, and Kayleen and Dr. Scott and Carola from School of Extended Learning, and the list goes on, right? So those conversations are happening, so I want to let the Senate know sooner rather than later. Program review. So we had a big discussion after the program reviews came in last Tuesday at Program Evaluation Committee. We're realizing a couple of things, one of them being that perhaps program review could be linked even better to some of the other initiatives on campus. You guys all know that I've been thinking a lot, and I've mentioned this previously, about our faculty ranking procedure and how reactionary it is and how quick it is, and also acknowledging that it is a huge heavy load for the departments that want to request a faculty position. And then the same year that you're also doing program review, it's a lot at once. And then also, why aren't those two things tied in any meaningful way? They're kind of separate processes. So thinking about that, thinking about, the work that we've done, remember that this was a new year, new everything for program review. And so just thinking about how we can improve upon what we just did and learned and keep going throughout the year. If anyone in your divisions haven't turned in their program review, please absolutely remind them one last time. The links will continue to be open, but it's past due at this point. So to the best of everybody's ability, they need to be submitted ASAP. Dr. Kathy Scott reminded us that that there's going to be a vaccine requirement for the spring. Of course, our vaccine mandate isn't going anywhere. However, there may be students enrolling in our courses for the spring that weren't here in the fall, of course, obviously. And so, or they're taking online classes for the fall and they just haven't been paying attention to the in-person on-campus conversations. So it would be just really helpful if any of you are sending out your last minute emails to your students wrapping up your semester to remind students that there is a vaccine mandate, and if they're not vaccinated, to get vaccinated over the break, or to apply for the, what is it called? Not substitution. When you don't get the vaccine, what is that called?
Exemption.
Exemption, thank you. So that they're going to apply for that. Thanks, Paloma. Okay, email. Ooh. I was just signed out of Zoom. An email will be coming out, especially to our part-time faculty senators. There is a state academic senate part-time institute in February. It will be on February 10th and 11th. I was looking at the program. I think it looks amazing. So registration for that is February 8th. And again, I'll be specifically putting that in front of Anna and Trisha, but for those, faculty out there that aren't reading their emails and that are at your division meetings, I definitely want everybody to mention it to their faculty. Also from the State Academic Senate, an API, Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, was just formed and announced. So I will be forwarding that email specifically to the 3 members of the faculty that I know went to our own AAPI caucus, we call it an affinity group. But again, if you want to share that out amongst your divisions so that any API identifying faculty can participate, that's awesome. This one's a big one. Dr. Murillo put on the CPC agenda yesterday and announced officially that our executive vice president's position will be split in 2. So remember that Dr. Kathy Scott is with us in an interim position. She will be with us through the spring. And after that, we will be replacing her and that position with 2 vice president positions. So one over student services and one over ed programs. This change has been a long time coming. If you remember, student services had I think it was a business evaluation years ago, and it was one of the recommendations that came out of that. And Dr. Goswami was moving in this way. And so this has been in the works for a long time, and it will happen. Also announced at CPC, and I mentioned this in my previous report, I think it was last week, it might have been the one before that, I can't remember, that the days all blur together. Remember that the college is getting a $1.327 million restricted, $1.327 million of restricted funding specifically for retention and enrollment that we have to spend by June 2022. So if you want to know the planning around the spending, the first time I shared that with you, all I can say is we're getting this lump of money and it's going to be used for that. But now at the CPC agenda yesterday, Dean Paloma Arnold shared out kind of where we're thinking that how that's going to go and the amounts and all of that. And so that planning those discussions have started. So if you want to take a look at that, that's there for information. 2 more things to share with you and they're both from the November 18th board meeting. If you haven't already watched the board meeting, I would encourage you to check out the video recording of item 10.2. Specifically, our Vice President of Human Resources, Michael Shanahan, did a really good job of providing an EEO board report. So that board report is given yearly. I think that you should watch this year's, especially. I think he did a really great presentation about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going as a campus in terms of representation and diversity on our campus. He also, during the question and answer period, I would encourage you to watch that throughout that time. He also mentioned the School of Extended Learning pilot part-time faculty hiring project that I spoke about months ago as part of my president report because I was involved in, but it got sidetracked with the change in leadership at School of Extended Learning. And now that Vice President Carola Smith is there more firmly for a while, we're picking that back up. So he talked a little bit about that. Now remember that we're piloting it on the part-time faculty hiring side of non-credit with the intention of mirroring it on the credit side of part-time faculty hiring. He also spoke a bit about our efforts of our full-time faculty hiring, we're calling it the anti-racism hiring pilot, and the need around that. So I think, I don't think, No, I think faculty hiring is one of the most important things that we do as a Senate, and really important conversations are being had. And I think that Vice President Shanahan did a really good job of explaining why these efforts are so important. So again, I really think that you should watch that board meeting because he says it better than I can. One last update from me. The other thing on that board agenda, again from November 18th, is the goals for our superintendent president. So these were goals and ideas that were generated, formulated, born during the board retreat in October, and then included in the November 18th board agenda for final vetting and approval. And so if you want to know where our college is going in the next 2 years under Kindred's, Dr. Murillo's interim leadership, that's where we're going. So please check out those goals, and they're there. And so I won't speak about them anymore. So unless there's any clarifying questions, we can move on to our Senate liaison report. Ruth.
Just two clarifying points about the API, the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus that was formed. It wasn't clear that it's here at SPCC, correct?
No.
Because you were talking about the state. So it's you're talking about the state level.
So we already had we call ours an AAPI affinity group. And so we have one here, but I'm mentioning one that has been formed at the state level.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then the other thing is for the 1.327 million retention funds for retention and enrollment. If folks can ask their faculty if they also have suggestions, we can certainly contribute to that.
Yep. Okay. Coolness. Thank you for that. So Senate liaisons, anything to bring up?
I'll add something or just highlight something quickly. We have on the agenda later revisiting the syllabus language suggestion that we've already discussed a couple times. And that was precipitated by our FPSS meeting last Friday. So if you want more detail on the discussion at that meeting, you can just read that in the report. Just wanted to highlight that it was there.
Thanks for that, Ellen. Yeah, and we'll explain a little bit more about why that's on the agenda today too. Ruth, your hand is still up?
No, it's up again.
Okay, it's up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I posted the dates here. Last time or the time before, I had mentioned that the ASCCC and the Faculty Association, CCC also at the state level, they're holding webinars on advocacy. They're calling it legislative and advocacy training. And so they're going to discuss the role of the Board of Governors, the Chancellor's Office, and various system partners, as well as explaining the fundamentals of policy development and how these groups contribute to the state level policy development. So if anyone's interested, I did post the dates in this report for those webinars, and you do have to sign up. So if you could share that, if you're interested, of course, sign up, but also share that with your faculty. And they did say they would post a recording, and I had something else to say and I forgot. That's it, I guess. But if you have questions, you can certainly contact me as well.
Counting to make sure that we are still at quorum. Thanks for that, Ruth. Is that it for our liaison reports? Quite possibly is. Okay, Dr. Kathy Scott.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I have a few things to report. Firstly, in regards to what Ray said about the students in spring not being vaccinated, I did send that email out to everybody, to the faculty, asking for their help. We do have, as of I think yesterday, 1,000 students who are in this situation. They will be dropped before spring starts, about a week before spring starts. And then unlike what happened this semester, where we implemented the vaccine midway through the semester, they're not going to be able to get re-enrolled as easily because somebody might be in their spot. So it's really critical. We put a Canvas announcement up for the students on all Canvas sites, pages. It's on social, it will be on social media. We have a calling campaign. Multiple emails have been sent to students. So we're doing everything we can, but I don't know whether people are just procrastinating or it's a big problem, but it feels a bit like a big problem. Okay, on a happier note, I wanted to report that the re-enrollment campaign, their efforts this last weekend were really successful. It was Friday from 11 to 5 and Saturday from 11 to 5. There were a lot of people out there, a lot of classified staff, many managers. Actually, I should say many classified staff, many managers. And there were about 15 to 20 counselors among the people who were out there, and they rotated among the 2 days. But it was really a one-stop shop for students. Everybody was there to help them. It was really successful. And I know Paloma's here, and Paloma deserves the credit for putting on a really good event. She oversaw it, and it was extremely successful. I think we had about 160 students there. So we want to do it again because it seemed to be really helpful. I wanted to give you an enrollment update as of today. We're about 3% down from where we were last for enrollment for spring at this time last year. We are trying to pull it up. Our fill rates, just so you're aware, per modality, as of this morning, face-to-face, the fill rates are 48%. For hybrid, it's 64%. And for online, it's 68%. About 50% of our classes, about 50% of our seats are either hybrid or face-to-face, and about 50% are online. So it's about half and half. We weren't sure how students were going to go. It does appear that the online is still really popular. And we may have to adjust some of our spring offerings to meet what the students are saying that they want. So we'll be looking at that, and we already are looking at that. For spring, we're going to have support in the large classes for specifically someone to look at the wristbands. So the faculty who have 50, 60, 70 students aren't trying to spend their first 15 minutes looking to see if people have a wristband. So there'll be a staff member there 15 minutes before class starts up through about 5 minutes afterwards to try to help with the bulk of the students. I wanted to just ask for your assistance, and I'll be sending out an email, I guess, towards the beginning of spring about the pre-census drops. I know that something goes out and probably people ignore it because it's a standard email that comes out from A&R every semester. But those pre-census drops are really important because of those bots and all the financial aid fraud that's going on. It's really been exacerbated because of so many online classes. And while we have not been a particular victim of this, some schools have been massively hit, where just huge numbers of their students are not real students. And we just want to be aware of that and try to prevent it as much as possible because they're taking access along with basically stealing resources. So it's a big problem. Okay, and lastly, but not least, we're going to be putting out an announcement for 2 faculty partially reassigned positions for a percentage of load. One will be for professional development, specifically to support the equity efforts that we're trying to continue on with. I said that really badly. I know that Elizabeth had been in that role prior to becoming a dean, and we did not replace that position. It will be a partially reassigned position, but I am working to get that language out to everybody so they have a chance to apply, and it will close unless we have to extend it for reasons that we'll see how many people apply, but it'll probably close on the 21st of December. The other one is a partially reassigned position for distance education to support a faculty role to support distance education. This is partly because we had a failed search for that position of dean of distance ed, library, LRC, and faculty resources. And it would just be another person to help support training efforts, help work with faculty on quality courses, help with aligning our courses with the CVC OEI's rubric, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm working very diligently to get those out, I hope by Thursday, which is basically tomorrow. So maybe Thursday or Friday, but I'm going to try to get it out as quickly as possible. So I think that's it for me, unless people have questions. Thank you.
Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, just two quick questions. When you were talking about the percentage that were down this semester compared to last year at this time, I missed that. Can you repeat that number?
Yes, 3%.
3%. Okay. And then for these two faculty positions, they are full-time, correct?
Well, we'll be sending those out to full-time faculty, but they'll be for a portion. I'm new still, and I don't always know the way we say things, but it could be, for
Sorry.
example,
Yeah.
distance ed position could be 60% of a full-time load.
Right.
So you would
I meant only full-time faculty will be eligible.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Ruth?
Will you be sending out an announcement to either the entire campus or just to the large lecture faculty about what to expect when the semester starts? Like how things will go?
I'm sure there'll be emails coming out on any number of things, including the cleared for. And yes, we will be writing specifically to the faculty in the large classes to let them know there'll be someone there to support them. But yes, we will make sure that faculty know. But the processes we put in this semester have been working pretty well. Most of the students will be returning students. They know where the check-in stations are. But we'll have to work a lot on getting people acclimated to the cleared for. That's going to be the big change.
Thank you.
Any more clarifying questions at this time? Okay, then it seems like we can move on in our agenda. Item 5.4 is our standing item of request to add items to our agenda or for Senate's consideration, and there was no requests for today's meeting. We have no items on our consent agenda, so we find ourselves now at item 7.1, which is the Office of Institutional Research providing a report on the first year of AB 705. And Melanie's here. And thanks for joining us, Melanie. And before she gets started, I just want to also highlight that I attached 4 documents in addition to this first year report to this agenda item. One of them being a memo from the Chancellor's Office indicating the requirement to provide a improvement plan by March 11th of 2022. So that memo is there. And then there's also 3 related documents, and they're literally labeled number 1, number 2, and number 3 that go along with that memo. So please take a look at that and share that out if it's relevant to your faculty interests. And I'm gonna kick it over to Melanie and Chris, because I got kicked out. I am still a co-host. Okay, cool. But if you're there, maybe we want to give Melanie co-hosting rights as well, so she can kick things off.
Or at least it'd be helpful if I could share my screen.
Yep, Chris did it. So you should be able to share now, Melanie, and go ahead and take it away. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Let me share my screen here. And hopefully everyone can see that okay. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here to share this information with you. I hope that you'll find it useful and interesting. And if you happen to be at CPC yesterday, this will be a repeat, but hopefully you'll still get some more new information out of it. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melanie Rogers, and I'm the Senior Analyst in the Institutional Research Office. And today I'm providing an overview of the AB 705 first year report, and I'll be highlighting the main findings of that research. So to provide you with a little bit of background of what AB 705 is and how it came to be, for many years, California community colleges faced challenges with moving students through the below college level course sequences in English and math. And as you can see from this timeline, there were several programs and initiatives developed over the years to assist students in moving through those courses. And you can see the fourth line here on the timeline is called the Multiple Measures Assessment Project, also known as MMAP. And that was a large research study conducted using California high school and community college student data. The MMAP research team developed predictive algorithms for placing students into college English and math courses based on the high school transcript data of those students. And they found that cumulative high school GPA is a better predictor of success in college level English and math courses than the assessment test scores that we had been using. And these MMAP research findings were then used to develop the guidelines and inform decisions concerning the implementation of AB 705. So the legislation was passed in 2017 and it went into effect in the fall 2019 semester. And it basically requires us as community colleges to maximize the probability that our students will complete their transfer level English and math requirements within 1 year. It also requires us to use high school transcript data to place students into those English and math courses. In response to the new law, our math department decreased by 85% and our English department decreased by 94% their below transfer level course offerings starting in fall 19. And the math department increased by 33% and the English department increased by 47% the transfer level course sections that they offered for students. They also, both departments increased the support courses that they were offering to go along with those transfer level courses. We also had large changes in the way we do our assessment and placement of incoming students. As of fall 2019, all entering students are eligible for transfer level English. And at the time, the math placement was based primarily on high school GPA. But meanwhile, as of this upcoming spring 22 semester, all entering students are also eligible for transfer level math. If you'd like to view the report, it's available as a PDF, I believe, attached to this meeting agenda. And it's also available through this link on my presentation slides to go directly to the Google Doc. And the presentation slides are also, I believe, attached to the agenda as a PDF. And I'd like to draw your attention for a moment to the Tableau dashboards that my department developed that include all of these data metrics, and they allow you to explore a little bit and disaggregate the data by a variety of student demographic characteristics, including the entering high school GPA of students and also whether or not students took a support course along with their English or math course. All you do is log into Tableau with your pipeline credentials and search for AB 705. And if you'll allow me just a 1-minute quick overview, I can show you how to do that. You'd go into this search window, type in AB 705, and you'll come to this AB 705 outcomes dashboard. And you'll see that there's all the data metrics for English, BSTEM, and SLAM. And if we just take a quick peek, I'll show you how to navigate through the dashboard and get the information. So at the top, you'll see all these tabs, and this is how you can kind of use the arrows to go back and forth to find the metric that you want to look at for the subject area that you're interested in. This one is English throughput, just as an example. You'll see at the top, there's a variety of filters here. You can select which semesters you want to look at. You can look at specific courses. You can select students who came in with certain high school GPA. And on this drop-down menu, you can select disaggregations by a variety of student demographic characteristics. So if we just pick one to look at here, we can see how that affects the graphs. You'll see your legend over here that color codes the groups of the disaggregated students that you selected. This red line is the overall throughput rate. The lines represent the different GPA bands that we selected. And the percentages, if you hover, you can see head counts, but in order to see the head counts more easily, the next graph down shows that information. So you can very quickly see the size of the groups of students that we're looking at. The information is the same, it's just displayed differently so you can see how large the groups are. And the third graph, the last graph in this dashboard, shows at a glance where we have equity gaps and disproportionate impact for different student groups. So you can see here the students who come in with a 2.6 cumulative high school GPA or above are above the average for throughput rate in English, and students who have below a 2.6 are below the average for throughput rate. And this graph also, I want to let you know, aggregates all of the semesters. Whatever you have selected up here, this will combine all the data into this one graph. So that's just the quick 1-minute tour, and I really encourage you to go check out the dashboards. There's a lot of useful information in there. If you have any problems accessing the dashboard, if you have any questions as you're going through them, please contact my office and we'll be happy to assist you in any way with those. Okay, so back to our first year report. Our analysis used a pre-post design with the pre-AB 705 period, including fall 14 through summer 19 semesters, and the post-AB 705 time period is fall 18 through summer 2020. The population included first-time continuing and returning students with educational goals of degree or transfer, and for whom this was their first enrollment in an English or math course at SBCC. And since AB 705 was designed primarily to benefit students who are enrolled in below transfer level courses, we did a disproportionate impact analysis to identify specific populations of students who in the past had been overrepresented in below transfer level math and English courses. And for lack of a better acronym or abbreviation, you'll see in the report and in my presentation that these students are identified as HOBT or HOBT, which means that these are students who were historically overrepresented in below transfer level courses. So the student groups we identified include EOPS, financial aid recipients, first generation, foster youth, Hispanic, F1 visa, out of state, SBCC Promise participants, and veterans. Our research plan was designed to evaluate the effects of AB 705 on student enrollment and success in specific English and math courses. And in collaboration with the English and math departments, we developed 11 research questions to address the areas that were of the most interest to the departments. Then we grouped those 11 questions into the 3 general student outcome areas of access, success, and momentum. Each of the research questions was evaluated across the 3 subject areas of English, BSTEM, and SLAM math, and also for each of the HOPT identified student populations. If you want to see all the 11 research questions, they're written out in the methods section of the report, starting on page 12. And the results section of the report is organized by the instructional subject areas, with the results for English starting on page 13, the BSTEM results start on page 23, and SLAM results start on page 33, if you want to just go directly to the subject area that's of most interest to you. So rather than read out all the 11 research questions, you can see them in the report. I just wanted to give you examples of the kinds of research questions that we included in each of these student outcome areas of access, success, and momentum. So the access questions are about finding out which students are enrolled in our courses. And one of the things we looked at is whether there was a change in the proportion of the HOPT identified student groups enrolled in transfer level courses after AB 705 compared to before. And for the area of success, we were of course interested in any differences in success rates in transfer level courses. And we also included all the research questions related to throughput rates in the success area. For momentum, the questions are related to tracking students after they took their first course in a subject area to see if, for example, they enrolled in the next transfer level course in the sequence within 1 year after successfully completing their first transfer level course. Okay, I'll provide a brief overview of the results, and I'll start with the overall results first, and then I'll highlight some of the results for the disproportionately impacted student populations as well. Consistent with the MMAP research findings, we saw decreased enrollment in below transfer level courses and increased enrollment in transfer level courses. And the increases in enrollment were particularly noticeable for students in the HOPT identified populations. We also saw larger proportions of HOPT students enrolled in support courses than non-HOPT students. Overall success rates decreased by 6% in English, by 11% in BSTEM, and by 14% in SLAM math courses. And interestingly, we saw lower success rates in SLAM for students who were enrolled in the support courses compared to students who did not take the support courses. Another interesting result came out of a separate analysis that we did for success in transfer level English, in which a strong positive relation was found between the use of tutoring services and increased success. And if you're interested in reading that separate analysis, there is a link to it provided in the first year report on page 18. And then we replicated that analysis for BSTEM and SLAM, and we found similar results, that there is a strong positive relation between tutoring and success in both of the math tracks. Throughput rate refers to the percentage of students who complete a transfer level course in a subject area within 1 year of their first attempt at a course in that subject. And we saw large increases in throughput rates in all 3 subject areas, 23% in English, 28% in math, and 30% in SLAM. We also saw higher throughput rates for students who start in a transfer level course compared to those who start below transfer level. For the research questions related to momentum, we did not see large differences from pre-AB 705 to post-AB 705 in the SLAM or BSTEM math areas. So these results refer only to the English subject area. Among transfer-seeking students who successfully completed their first transfer level English course, there was a 6% increase after AB 705 in the percentage of students who enrolled in the next transfer level course in the sequence within 1 year. And for transfer-seeking students who failed to complete their first transfer level English course in the fall, there was a 6% decrease after AB 705 in the percentage of students who enrolled in 6 or more units in the subsequent spring semester. So now we'll take a quick look at some of the results for the disproportionately impacted student populations. In the area of access, we saw increased enrollment in transfer level courses in all 3 subject areas, particularly for first generation Hispanic and SBCC Promise students. We also saw larger proportions of first generation and Hispanic students enrolled in support courses in all 3 subject areas. For success, we saw significant decreases in success rates among all of the HOP student populations across all the subject areas, with the exception of F1 visa students in BSTEM and SLAM. And we saw significant increases in throughput rates for all HOP student populations across all 3 subject areas, with the exception of F1 visa and out-of-state students in BSTEM. And again, the questions related to momentum only apply to the English subject area. And we saw increase in financial aid and Hispanic students enrolling in the next transfer level course in the sequence within 1 year. And we saw decreased enrollment of 6 units or more in the subsequent spring semester for financial aid, first generation Hispanic and SBCC Promise students. As with most any research study, this one also encountered its share of limitations. Probably most notably is that the transition to remote learning midway through the spring 2020 semester due to the COVID-19 pandemic is likely to have had some impact on enrollment and success, and this shift was not accounted for in our research design. Also, the college experienced an increase in SBCC Promise student participants and a decrease in F1 visa student enrollments during this same time period that's included in the report, and those could be potentially confounding factors when we see increases or decreases in enrollments in the data for these 2 student groups. And finally, the scope of this research is limited to students who have declared educational goals related to earning a degree or transferring to a 4-year institution, which means that not all students enrolled in those English and math courses are included in the study. So the main conclusions that we can draw from this first year report is that we saw increased enrollment in transfer level courses. And while we saw decreases in success rates for those courses, we saw substantially increased throughput rates across the board. And we found that tutoring was more effective at helping students to be successful than enrolling in the support courses. So thank you so much for your time. If you'd like to explore the report in more detail, or if you have any questions, please contact my office. We'd be happy to meet with you. And I also want to give a special thank you to Dr. Art Olguin in the psychology department. He did a very thorough read of the first draft of this report and provided very valuable feedback for us. So I appreciate his time and effort in that. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Thank you so much for that, Melanie. This is important information for the Senate to know and understand. So at this time, I do hope that there are some questions.
One other thing, yesterday when I presented to CPC, Jamie was good enough afterwards to point out, just to make sure people understand that this decrease that we saw in the success rates was expected, and it's consistent with the results from the MMAP research and from similar research that's been done at other colleges and universities around the nation. So that might look alarming, but that was an expected result. It was anticipated, and it's in alignment with other research that's been done similarly. And the real star of the show is the increase in throughput rates. That's showing that our students, more of our students are getting through their transfer level English and math requirements within that 1 year, which was the whole intent and purpose of AB 705.
Yeah. Now,
So-
ideally, we'd also have, at this point, an increase of success rate moving forward, right? But
Yeah,
it was-
I mean, it's anticipated. It doesn't mean that we want to just stay there, right? We want to find ways to support the students who are not being successful and bring that up for sure.
awesome. Thanks. Jenny?
That was actually what I was hoping you could explain just for, I think everyone on the Senate. Can you give a little overview of like how it is that success can go down while throughput goes up, and just maybe remind us why that is?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. It is a little confusing. So prior to AB 705, we had certain success rates in our transferable courses because we were only allowing certain students to take those courses based on our assessment tests, and then they were placed into certain levels. So we had students going into those below transfer level courses. So our success rates were at a certain level. After AB 705, we pretty much opened up the gates and said, okay, now all these students are going to take transfer level courses. So that's why it's expected that the success rates will go down, because some of those students previously would have been in a below college level or below transfer level course. And so that's where the difference is coming in. However, when we open those gates and we allow more students to take the transfer level course from their first semester on, they're showing that more students are being successful in their courses, and that's where that's adding into the throughput rate, that they're completing those courses within their first year. Whereas again, previously those students would be 1 or 2 or possibly 3 levels below transfer level, and they wouldn't even get to the transfer level course within their first year, let alone be successful in it. Does that make sense? Does that help understand how those rates are working? I hope.
I would just like to add, the throughput being higher is a function of conditional probability, right? So if one way of thinking about it is like, if we have all these pre-courses, pre-college level courses, I hate that phrase, or like below transfer level, I hate that phrase, but there is no good phrase. And you have students at those levels, like at any level they can leave, let's call it the pipeline, right? And
Yeah.
so the throughput is going to be lower in that model, versus if you have them all start here, the throughput is higher, but the success has gone down for some of them.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what kind of started this whole area of research, is saying we're losing students. We're losing students in that pipeline. They're leaving our college and going on and doing other things, and we want to support people in reaching their goals and continuing on to their degrees and transfers and whatever they wanted to do when they first came to us.
Which is why I think the momentum part of the conversation is so important, because the throughput is just the function of like the probability of that happening. I'm not speaking accurately, but I think the momentum of after you're successful, then you go on. I think that that's a really meaningful part of it.
Correct.
So now that we've seen this, now we can work on supporting the students to increase success.
Right. Yeah. And this was just the first year report. Hopefully we will be able to look at like you said, momentum. Now let's follow students through their goals. Did they complete their degrees? Did they transfer? Did they, do those additional things that we need more time to see whether those played out? So
Robbie and Margarita, your hands were up, I saw. Margarita?
My question got answered.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you to Melanie for all this work. And I guess it's like, as parents, we can understand when you tell someone you are below your level or below any level, they respond like that. And when you open the gates, as you mentioned, and you tell them you are like anybody else, you are as good as anybody else, they respond as good as anybody else. At the beginning, like you said, some might kind of look like sinking, but then they just float like anybody else. So we started treating them like they could transfer, and now they're transferring. And that's wonderful. I think there's a wonderful example of how we use the language and how we treat our students is so important. If we tell them you're going to have to take a remedial course, or then they're going to feel like they're not good enough. And if we tell them you are like anybody else, you're going to transfer, then they will transfer.
yes, thank you so much for pointing that out. That was a big part of the psychological aspect behind all this research, was saying, what message are we sending to students as a college? Here, welcome to our college. Oh, wait a minute, you're not ready for college yet. Versus the message of saying, yes, you are capable of being successful in these courses. We have faith in you, go for it. And it does send a very different message to them to be successful and to expect that of themselves. So thank you for pointing that out.
All righty.
So
I think.
are there any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for having me. And if you do think of anything else, or if you have time to go through the report in more detail, or please check out the dashboards. They really are fun to play with. Just let me know if you have any questions or any problems accessing anything, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, Melanie, thanks so much. It's really appreciated that you were willing to come here and do that and share this out. So it's important for the Senate to hear this.
Yeah,
right.
I'm happy to. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Happy holidays.
You too. Bye.
Okay. All right, so item 7.2 is actually a report from our faculty association. As the Senate knows, the Senate and the Faculty Association agreed in fall of 2019 that the faculty evaluation process would be moved to our collective bargaining agreement. And since then, the Faculty Association has been working on doing that, and it's now fall of 2021, and we've seen a couple updates from them. Something I'd like to highlight that I think is very informative is the planned timeline for moving forward in 2022. So they gave us some information here on how it will move forward, which I am very excited to see. And they're mentioning that the agreement will move forward with the district negotiation team. And so really excited about that coming to fruition. So if you'd like more information, please read that report there. And we can now move on to item 8.1. So before we engage in dialogue and revisit this concept, I'd like to call for public comment again. So if anybody would like to comment on agenda item 8.1, now would be a great time to indicate as much. I'm still counting to make sure we're at quorum. It just seems like such a small group today. Okay, so I am seeing no indication that anyone would like to give public comment on item 8.1. So let me reshare my screen and discuss a little bit so that we can, I'm sure the Senate is really confused about why this item is back here. So how do I set this up? So this item is back here as kind of a unilateral decision by me. I let Senate steering know that I was going to re-agendize it, but it was after our Senate steering meeting to figure out the agenda. And so I didn't have time to plan with them. So this was a bit of a unilateral decision. And that decision was the result of another unilateral decision I made back in November, which was to not provide the Faculty Partnership for Student Success declarations or statement on expectations for spring of 2022. So I made the decision not to include it on our agendas in November for our initial discussion of this item for reasons that I don't have to get into unless people are interested. So that document is now here posted on the agenda for your review. And I explained my reasons for not agendizing this statement to Faculty Partnership for Student Success last Friday. And I got the very clear impression that that subcommittee of the Academic Senate felt as though the Academic Senate was not providing enough support to faculty to prepare for the spring semester in different ways. One of the pieces that was conveyed to me was that the Senate was not doing a good enough job sharing out information that faculty might need to plan for the spring. So one of the examples provided there was that, for instance, food and drink is hard to come by on campus. So for instance, when we first opened up in the fall, there was not food and drink services available on West Campus. So while that was true, a faculty member that was concerned about this brought it to my attention. That faculty member, myself, and others engaged in email communication with Vice President Lindsay Moss. Business services, food services were open on West Campus, so I did not think that that was something that needed to be brought to the Senate or discussed. It can be argued that there is not enough food and beverage service on West Campus for the increase in students that are coming in the spring. And while that certainly affects student and faculty experience on campus, I feel as though that is not Senate concern nor purview. Another concern that I've heard from members of this Senate subcommittee is that there is the planning for in-person tutoring for the spring is lacking at best and non-existent in actuality, or at least was at the time that it was shared with me. I had a meeting with Executive Vice President Kathy Scott about the issue, and I brought in the concerned members from the Senate subcommittee to dialogue with her, and felt as though I did enough to also address that. But again, frustration was expressed by many committee members that it's still not worked out, that in-person tutoring is still not worked out. And so during the meeting, I asked our Learning Support Services Director, Dr. Vandana Gavaskar, if she was available to provide line of sight for spring tutoring. And she says that she's available Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And so we're considering that a win and moving forward with planning around that. So again, because of the history around criticism towards the Senate and around that tutoring services are not our purview. I did not feel compelled to bring that to the Senate. However, faculty are very concerned about in-person tutoring services for the spring and how can we support in-person classes and students without in-person tutoring. And I don't necessarily disagree. I just wasn't sure what Senate could do with that. Hold on one second. Hey, Mom, can you come grab the baby for me? Another overarching concern and frustration I heard from faculty is, again, why this item is being reconsidered, the syllabus language. I was told in no uncertain terms that the Faculty Senate came to the wrong conclusion of not providing clearer language for syllabi for faculty to use for the spring, and that faculty need more support on how to work with students that are claiming illness and need absences and need flexibility. And so faculty were feeling very frustrated and hold on one second. And so, yes, Elray, I'll get you food in just a second, okay? And so, so in that discussion, I said that we could bring it back to the Senate to discuss again. So here it is again for our consideration. We can also discuss any of the matters of concern in the attached document from FPSS. There are many, and they were very diverse and large scope. Many of them, in my opinion, have already been addressed by either our COVID coordinators and shared out in other ways. And perhaps the issue is just effective and clear communication around what is happening on campus. And that's why there is still concern around some of those things. But I definitely take it very seriously that faculty feel very unsupported for the spring and feel as though they don't have guidance for how and what to do and how to interact with students. Now, fast forward to conversations I've had around this with Dr. Kathy Scott and the deans on Monday. Dr. Kathy Scott and I have drafted an email together that we are willing to send out to the entire faculty body with different points, basically clarifying that, yes, it would be ideal if you could be, you can definitely have cookies. I was very happy about this. That we would be, that we ask for flexibility to the best of your ability for your students that may be sick or may have family that are, hey dude, I'm in a really important meeting that's like totally stressing me out. So can I have space? Thank you. Take your Oreos. You can take them, just maybe not eat all of them. Yes, I just gave my 6-year-old an entire package of Oreos. That does not need to go in the meeting minutes. That we encourage faculty to be as flexible, as accommodating as you can, but that it is your decision as the instructor in the class, and that expectation is not coming from an authority figure, and that to the best of your ability, you need to work with your students and figure out what works. And if that means that you have strict deadlines and aren't willing to accommodate them, then that is your prerogative. So that's how we arrived here. That's why this agenda item is back. I do think that this may set a dangerous precedent of the Senate being the authority, being the professional voice of the body, of the faculty body, coming to a conclusion and then being told that it was the wrong conclusion, and that I, as academic Senate president, are being naive to think that our previous conclusion is sufficient. And nevertheless, I also don't want to not bring things before the Senate that faculty, especially a faculty committee and a subcommittee of the Academic Senate feels very strongly about. So that's how we arrived here. Ellen Carey is the Senate liaison to this committee. She was present at the meeting that I am sharing, which is why this has been re-agendized. So with that, we can open it up for discussion. I would like to point out that the Senate has considered this before, and that this FPSS document is very long and has a large scope, many of which are not under our purview. And there are some items that are factually incorrect. And so it is my preference not to spend a lot of time on this. And nevertheless, I would like guidance from the Senate on how to proceed so that I'm not unilaterally making decisions. So Ruth and then Ellen.
All right, thanks for clarifying that. I wasn't exactly sure why this was back. From what I remember, we did consider this and we took quite a bit of time to consider this. And initially, I really expected this body, before we had the discussion, to actually support putting a syllabus statement through. If anyone remembers, that was one of the things that I said, that I was supportive of it. But then after the discussion, even I was convinced. But I do remember we put a lot of time to it. I don't see, in looking at this document, I don't see anything we can really directly like dictate by decree or even allocate anything for. So I agree that this is not directly within our purview. However, I do think these matters are really, really important. And it's something that we need to bring up to the administration. I don't know if it needed to be through the Senate, but it's here. But we definitely need to stay on them about these things, because I agree that these are really, really important things. In terms of a syllabus statement, I think we can still provide it to our divisions. We wrote something up that we provided for social science folks, including, some of the things we discussed last time, that they're free to use. So I do think that we as senators should mention it to our faculty members, saying, hey, especially if you haven't been in person before, you should probably think about this, because many of us, like, I haven't been in person, so I wouldn't have thought about it too much had it not been brought up already. And maybe perhaps even a way, even if it's through senators or maybe through FPSS or a point person, or actually through our deans, this is the way it should be going, provide a way to for faculty to communicate any concerns that do come up, where there's a fast response. Yeah, but I do think that our deans and our administration need to act on this and be willing to respond when something comes up, to respond rather quickly.
So Ruth, you said that there are some important items in this document that we need to put pressure on the administration about. Can you be a little bit more specific? Because I'm unaware of what that might be.
Well, just the like things we don't control, right? Wanting late start, the recommendations, wanting late start classes, more tutoring labs, lab hours, that sort of thing, right? But again, that's not something.
Yeah.
We control.
So I sent a very strongly worded email over the weekend to, well, two things. Literally everyone that can affect change about tutoring is on this committee. So Dean Elizabeth Imhoff is Dean Liaison to this committee. Dr. Vandana Gavaskar is on this committee. The chair of this committee that is charged with overseeing tutoring is on this committee, as well as Beth Taylor Schott, who is on this committee. So I sent a very strongly worded email over the weekend to say, literally, you all get paid to provide tutoring services and figure it out. So somebody needs to figure it out, go. So I don't know. And so that's why I'm looking for guidance here. How much more pressure can be supplied other than my email, other than my elevating it to Dr. Kathy Scott, other than bringing it up to Dean's Council in this email as well, and other than like pointing this out literally last Friday in the meeting, that all of you are the ones in charge of tutoring, so figure it out. I don't know what other pressure can be given from the Senate or another body at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like it does need to be coming out of this committee. So the frustration, I suppose, it should be birthed there, but it should also be solved there, it sounds like.
So that's what I'm trying to say, is the frustration is birthed there, but also the literal people that need to be in the room together are in the room together. So I'm not sure how much more pressure, to quote the administration, can be applied at this point to affect this change. And that may be a limitation of my leadership and my narrow-mindedness, but at a certain point, accountability and transparency and like those things that we keep talking about just has to happen. So I'm struggling with that this report was made and brought to the Senate because the Senate needs to do something with that. So that's why I'm coming back to this question to you, Ruth, of these things are important. What in here does the Senate, me, or someone else need to take and address?
Honestly, it sounds like you've done it. That it needs to come from FPSS, and the administration needs to act and listen to them. And I don't know what else we can do. I don't know if Ellen or others have suggestions.
Yeah. Ellen?
Okay, a couple things. I want to get back to what we were just talking about, but first I wanted to just offer a couple other perspectives on that meeting on Friday. I think the way Ray summarized it, I agree with everything you said, and I think that you made really important points. The one thing I would add is that there was some conversation about there being, legitimate pedagogical concerns about dynamics where students are out for a significant amount of time, the students stop attending class regularly as the semester goes on, and how does that impact the dynamics within the classroom when there's a small fraction of the students actually participating face-to-face later in the semester and stuff like that. And I think part of what came up at the meeting was some real frustration and desire for guidance around some of those issues. And as Ray said at the meeting, and I agree with her, that's not really Senate's role to figure that out or write some policy about it or some statement or whatever. One suggestion that I think Ray made was perhaps that's the kind of thing that a FIG could work on, or some kind of, there could be a brown bag lunch series or whatever. Like we do need to grapple with those kinds of issues as teachers. And so I think it's important that we not dismiss those very real concerns that happen to be coming up in conversations in this committee. And yet I also agree wholeheartedly with Ray that the mechanism that the committee chose to try to address those through a statement that they were hoping the Senate would endorse in some way was not the ideal way of going about that. So that's sort of my take on this. And then as far as I also agree that the concern about tutoring, face-to-face tutoring hours was born out of this committee, and also this is the committee that needs to address that. I will also add, though, and I don't think this is something the Senate really has control over, even a role in, perhaps, but it is something that is affecting academic support faculty. So I'll just put it out there. Both in terms of LRC hours and also library hours, we are lacking some staff positions that have been empty for a significant period of time. And in the library, we have a staff position that's been empty for over a year at this point. And we really haven't, I know both units have been asking the administration to fill those staff positions. So there is some tension for faculty around this desire to provide more face-to-face services for students and pressure from the administration to do so, while the inability to do so because of the lack of staff to support those spaces during those open hours. So I will, I bring that up here because I just feel like it needs to be said. As an ESD senator, it's affecting faculty in our division. We work very closely with staff in ways that not all faculty necessarily do. And I also don't think getting the administration to hire staff positions is the role of the Senate. So I can understand the frustration in that area too that FPSS has. And I don't think that the process by which they tried to address it is necessarily the ideal one.
There is also I think one thing that we need to grapple with on this campus that Senate could own in these conversations is this concept of line of sight. There still seems to be a lot of confusion around line of sight. In an email communication, Dr. Gavaskar relayed to me that line of sight is only required when we collect apportionment for tutoring. We do not collect apportionment for tutoring. We haven't for a really long time, if ever. So as I understand it in the LRC, for English, where English tutoring is happening, there is a requirement for line of sight, meaning a literal faculty member sitting in the same room, like line of sight, looking at the tutors working with students. Now, on my side of campus, line of sight is not a literal interpretation of line of sight. And as long as faculty are, quote, in the building where tutoring is happening, like in a completely separate part of the building in a room, then that requirement has been met. So I'm still a little baffled about why on one side of our campus, there is this very literal understanding of line of sight. And then you cross Loma Alta on the bridge, and then there is this completely different understanding of what needs to be provided for in-person tutoring services. And to add to this conversation, line of sight in the online tutoring world is provided by tutors being required to record their Zoom session, but there is no physical literal line of sight in that scenario either. Now, if an incident arises, of course, we can all go back to the recordings, which is why that is part of tutor training and onboarding of our remote tutors. But as we move back face to face, I do think somebody needs to figure out whether line of sight is literal line of sight or whether it's this concept of that there is faculty about that can provide, I don't know, whatever they're supposed to be providing through this Title V requirement. Trisha? And then I would really love to move on from this unless the Senate wants to do something, respond, have some product out of this.
My understanding was one of the main issues that came up was the idea of the excessive absence, and how it's, if you look at the code of conduct, it's if you're gone for more than 3 days, then, you can be dropped from the class. If you're going to be gone for a medical reason, you need to meet with the dean, and I think that my impression from listening to others and is that that's not really clear how that works in COVID for everybody. Does it do, if a student is quarantining because of COVID, do they also have to talk to the dean to get permission to be gone that long? Is an instructor, can an instructor drop somebody for missing 3 days of classes? And I just think that like clarificate, well, like someone said earlier, having faculty be aware that they need to think through what their response is going to be beforehand, and then also making it clear what is and isn't allowable, because I think students may feel like, oh, well, that was in the old days. Now under COVID, I have to stay home. So that's the impression I got, and I don't know if that's something that if the Senate's not going to decide, at least guide people to where that can be found. And maybe that's the COVID response team which I'm a member of right now. Maybe that's something that needs to be addressed.
So I'll share again, as I did at that meeting, that guidance came from Joyce Coleman at our last Senate meeting on December 1st. So if you go back to that agenda, she created the self-attestation document for students to use, so that when they claim COVID, there is a clear protocol that they follow through with, so that they get this document, so that it is filed with the school, so that an instructor can confirm that they in fact have COVID. So yes, people need guidance around this, and literally 2 days prior, that information was shared out at the Senate. And then I offered that it was shared out at the Senate, and there was discussion around perhaps there can be improvement around senators' communications out to divisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something for all of us to think about and sit with. Are we sharing out the information that's being said at Senate effectively and efficiently, so that faculty actually know? Maybe we are, and it's just like drinking from a fire hose, and people just are at their wits' end. And so they aren't able to process it and know that it's coming. But therein lies an issue, right? So if information is being shared out, and then people are saying, none of this has been worked on, and you all need to share this out better, then we are at an impasse. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to better do it. It's my understanding TikTok is very popular, so maybe we do a Senate. I mean, I'm being flipped, but I'm just saying,
I was thinking that's true. Like the fire hose, the information, what's relevant, not relevant. People won't glance at it until they know it's relevant. So maybe maybe not Senate's role. Maybe this is the COVID response team. Maybe it's a more streamlined, like a web page, even, I don't know, TikTok, but like where you can, like a checklist before you start this term, have you considered this, something like that, where all this information that's shared by many people and many formats is all kind of in one place. So that's kind of the main gist that I got from the FPSS meeting last Friday. And then also that I'm still not clear how I know we got the form, but I'm not sure like the whole process, how that would work. And again, it's not so much relevant for non-credit, but that was my 2 cents.
So, so I view that as the role of a senator, which is why we've had retreat items on this, which is, it is the role of the senator to kind of digest the meeting and share out with faculty. And so I could totally be misremembering that meeting that I brought that forward December 1st when it was listed as an agenda item. But I thought I presented it as Joyce Coleman and I were out on a walk and talk as she and I were, discussing ways to support faculty, and this faculty criticism of, it seems like everyone's claiming COVID and then disappears. So how can we do this? And so I thought that I set it up at that time as that background information. And then also I'm looking at the agenda now from December 1st. It gives a very specific protocol, which is once the student completes the isolation, the contact tracer sends out the attached form to the student. so that they can attest when they are ready to return to class, the student forms. And by the way, like the contact tracer like is the one that reaches out to them, right? And so they're in communication with the student to make sure that this gets done. And then once it gets done, it gets forwarded to the teacher so that the teacher is aware. So I may not have explained that very well.
That part's clear. It's just, what do you do after? Can you drop the student anyway? If they've missed 2 weeks of class? Probably not. But anyway, that's something maybe we can talk to Joyce about.
So no, that's not a Joyce conversation. That's a you as a working professional situation, as you need to figure that out. We all need to figure that out. So I think therein comes the rub, because I think some of us want to be told, if it's been 3 weeks, you need to drop the student. But then some of us are going to say, but I don't want to do that because I can give them online work. Okay, awesome, do that. And then I'm going to say, I can't do that because they missed 3 weeks of lab, which is a huge chunk of their hands-on activity learning. And so I'm going to drop the student. But we all need to do that as content and discipline experts.
Yeah, definitely. Just what are the parameters? That's all. What's allowable, what's not allowable, and then the instructors can make the decision that works best for their class.
Okay. So maybe I
was trying to restate what you were saying, so I'm not arguing.
Right. Oh, okay. I thought you were still confused. Yeah. So to me, like, and maybe that gray area is like too much for faculty. And I get that, but like, I don't think what will work for anthropology will work for chemistry.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that. It's just,
no,
what are the rules? Like, what are you allowed to do, not allowed to do? And then the faculty can make that decision. And that's what I thought was maybe perhaps missing, but right, it's probably in there somewhere. So I'm sorry, other people have their hands up. I'll cede the floor.
Jenny?
So 2 things. One thing that is building on what Tricia said about just streamline communication. I know when the EVP gave her oral report, she said, well, there's going to be a lot of emails and a lot, which obviously things are always changing. But just a plug for like a super streamlined messaging for return to spring, that's in categories of like, healthy, check-in and blah, blah, attendance issues, so just streamline messaging, ideally in one place as much as possible for faculty on some of this. Can
I ask a clarifying question so that I can share what that might mean? Because like right now, I don't know what that means. Do you mean streamline communication other than our email? Is that what you mean? Or you mean like a digested email? Like what exactly?
Not TikTok for me. But I mean, yes, it should come through email, because I think that's where most of us look. Whether it's like a live document that can keep being updated as stuff changes so that we can keep going back to the same document, great. But like not 40 emails. But that's not my big point that I wanted to say. I just want to make one final statement about tutoring. So I know English is, yes, really worried about this. We know like, math, and now I'm hearing chemistry all have tutoring, and English does not have any way to support our students face-to-face, and it's super stressful.
No, chemistry does not have face-to-face.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't my point about.
Okay, when you were talking about the line of sight, I thought maybe that implied that it was happening, but okay.
What I'm trying to say is in the before times,
yes.
On East Campus, line of sight, and I think that this was true for biology, and earth and planetary sciences as well. Line of sight was provided by having working faculty in the buildings. Totally. But at the West Campus, they want a literal eyeball on students.
Yes.
So
thank you. Yes. Okay. So what I'm hearing from FPSS, and these are the people who actually control tutoring, is that they are feeling powerless and feel like they still can't make it happen. So I'm kind of concerned about just saying, well, hey, this is you guys and you need to fix it, when it seems like they've been trying to, and it's not working because they need some higher up support, like, admin or LSS and hiring issues. So I'm just wondering, what can we do to?
No. Okay, so let me explain again. Dean Elizabeth Imhoff, who is the supervisor of everyone that should be scheduled, sits on this committee and has heard this. So, as I understood it, when things weren't acted upon at that level, it was then elevated by me to the executive vice president, Kathy Scott. And she and I and concerned members from FPSS dropped everything to meet to address this. And Kathy is shaking her head.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to put out there that, I mean, maybe we go to the superintendent president and the board at this point. Like, I do not know where else this can go. So let me say this very clearly in no uncertain terms. As I said in my email, it is somebody's job who literally gets paid to do this, to figure this out. Somebody needs to tell them, other than me, to do their job. Period. Full stop.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense to me. It's just puzzling then why the committee is still saying like, we can't do it. So.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, I can explain that. That is a great question. Because as I understand the organizational structure at the college, the person who has the ability to tell somebody else to do their job has not done that, or has, and the person whose job it is not doing it still. So as I understand it, which I was on, and Ellen can confirm, at FPSS, it was conveyed to me many times that this topic has been discussed at almost every single meeting this semester. And at every single meeting this semester, the administrator, who is Dean Elizabeth Imhoff, is in the meeting and is saying that they are working on it. So that's, and I'm offering this because I am frustrated with the narrative that it hasn't been elevated. It has, that it hasn't been confrontational. It has, that we haven't told somebody to do their job. We have, right? So at a certain point, we come to this place where you bang your head on the wall because other than like, I don't know, like marionetting somebody to like do it, it's just not getting done. So I get that there was emotion around that, but I also pointed out during the meeting that that emotion should not be directed at the Senate, because the Senate has tried to engage in tutoring conversations previously, and we have been criticized for the way in which we did that. And so, and that may have been a valid criticism, but here we are again with angry faculty saying something needs to be done about this. Senate, why aren't you doing anything?
Right.
So we are at this place where I am calling for accountability. But I have no power here. I am not a supervisor. I am not a manager. So with this information, what do we do? Robbie?
Can we, is there some mechanism to make an official request for somebody to just collate all the information that instructors need, not make their decisions for them, not teach their classes for them, but here's the range of things that are up to you. So that thing you're wondering about, it is on this list. That other thing you're wondering about, it's not on this list. So just let us know what the parameters are and put it somewhere and let us know where it is so that anybody who wants to know can go there. I don't know, should that be Dr. Murillo? Should that be FPSS? I don't know. It's clear that it shouldn't be us.
Wait, whoa. I completely disagree. So we have it somewhere. It is literally in the student catalog. After 3 absences, you can withdraw a student for non-attendance.
Right, but we're talking about more complicated nuances around that apply because of COVID. Like
No.
you may not want to and you don't have to. You might have these other options. If you don't want to, it might be because you've done X, Y, and Z and that can compensate and so on. It's a complicated thing.
So as a working professional with your students in your discipline, I am saying that you should figure that out.
Yeah, I know that. And I completely agree with the gist of this whole conversation, that this is not Senate's job to disseminate this information or to somehow establish what the rules are and enforce them. But there are a lot of people don't know what their choices are and they don't know where to go to find out. And the student catalog is not a place where we usually go when we're thinking about how we design our courses. And you know, there's this document that we discussed last time where you attest that you've had the disease and all that. But like, if I'm, you know, just now recovering from my finals and thinking, oh crap, I better get on designing my class, I don't have a place to go to find out what my options are. And I'm not asking for other people to make those decisions for me. I just want to, I understand the frustration about lack of leadership. And even if leadership in this case just means collating and disseminating the information, maybe that's what FPSS should be doing.
So hold on. So FPSS is Faculty Partnership for Student Success, not faculty support in that way.
I know that, but I mean, I'm talking about them because they're the ones that returned this thing to us and they're proposing all these things. And so they're the topic of this conversation in a way. They're central to the topic of this conversation.
But it is
But I
up
don't know,
to individual faculty members. And if you're mentioning lack of leadership, then I would view that not as Senate as the body. I would see that as perhaps senators. So that communication needs to go out by us and say, I'm reiterating this, Jenny reiterated it as well, mentioning to our faculty members, hey, you need to think this through. This is part of your job. You need to set the policy. Maybe if you want to reference, I'm glad Ray mentioned the catalog, reference the catalog, but here you go. You need to reference, I mean, you can mention this, you can reference this, this policy, but you need to think this through what your specific policy is going to be. So that's the extent of what I see our role being here is. And in terms of like even the fact that we're even having a conversation about line of sight here, I mean, we're not going to get to these other items. I have to leave at 5, right? And so we just spent all this time talking about this when this is something that we could have, as senators, not as the Senate, as senators communicated to our body, to our faculty members. And that has a relatively straightforward solution and does require some thought and maybe some discomfort in making those decisions, but including it in your syllabus is going to save a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not making my point well. I know that I need to design my own class. I know that. And I think everybody knows that. But there are lots of questions that people have, and there are lots of changes to how we're doing things. And I think as instructors are designing their classes, they don't know what all the options are. And once they do, they can pick them and decide and make the decisions and not ask anybody else to make those decisions for them. But the thing is, there is not a central resource for all this information. I mean, I can share, Dr. Coleman's document with people in my division, but they might have 16,000 other questions that are not answered by that document.
So Robbie, what did you do? Where did you go when you had a student that had to fly to Thailand for their father's funeral and could not be in class for 3 weeks? How did you handle that? Did you need guidance around that?
No.
Okay, so now we have a student that's out of your class for 3 weeks. How are you going to handle that?
Well, I don't know. The school discusses a lot of options, a lot of things for us to consider differently now because of COVID. And, I know a lot of what they are because I'm on Senate and I hear a lot of these conversations, but most of us don't.
Okay, so part of this discussion, okay, so let me say this very clearly. I do not want to ask the administration for guidance around class policies.
And this is where I'm being misunderstood. I don't either, and that's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing the administration to collate all the things that everybody's talking about in all these different committees and meetings and put it together as a resource for us, so that an idea that you might have had, or Jess might have had, or Ellen might have had, a pedagogically based idea, I can look at and go, oh, that's a good idea. That would work for me. Oh, that's a bad idea. That will not work for me.
Well, I literally would not want the administration to filter pedagogical discussions and share that out.
Well, they make a lot of other pedagogy related parameters on any campus. And this is a bigger conversation that maybe we shouldn't get into, but who better than? I mean, I listed the two people that came off the top of my head, administration and FPSS.
Literally you as the instructor in the class.
No, I'm talking about who is going to disseminate this to the entire faculty body. It should not be me. People don't come to their Senate notes to find out this kind of information. This is like extenuating COVID-related protocols.
No, it's not. Okay. I think because when we went through faculty professional development and we all got trained, I think that there was a fundamental misunderstanding that you could accommodate your students, and maybe that's an equity initiative, and maybe you might want to do this, and this might be a good idea, as the administration is telling us this, and now we have to do that. So I think that there's a misunderstanding that we got some directive that 3 absences, we can't drop our students is now different. So
I don't have that misunderstanding, but maybe this conversation has gone on. It served its purpose.
I'm not sure it has, because I literally got yelled at on Friday, and it seems like we're still here as a Senate wrestling with this. So I'm not sure that it has. So clearly I feel like that there's this push and pull around this that I don't understand. Maybe Ellen can clarify for me.
I wish I could. I actually raised my hand to suggest that we move on, because I think we have other important things on the agenda that I would like to address. But, I see Jenny has her hand up too. So I don't know, that was going to be my suggestion.
Yeah. And and it's the last, meeting before the winter. So I don't know that we need to get to them or go there. And like I said, it's not an educational emergency, but this seems like we do need to figure something out before the spring. And there does seem to be a sense of urgency for faculty. Jenny?
I think that it does sound like Senate was specifically addressed with regard to the syllabus statement issue, right? Because that is something we handled. The other couple things that have come up that you mentioned, things like food services or tutoring, seem like maybe they were not directed at you specifically, but were born out of a frustration for maybe them not having the ear or attention of managers. And so perhaps it was coming to you in hopes that you had some like greater pull or voice or connection to them that they did not have. And so I think maybe that's where a lot of this was born out of. If that helps clarify.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. But I guess what I'm a little confused by is by the time this meeting happened, the food had been picked up by me. And so like as a faculty body, I think that it's important to let go of things sometimes. And I say that as somebody who has experienced this campus and everything that it has to share, right? Meaning like 2 months ago, there wasn't food on the campus, and now there is. And so is it an effective use of energy and time and attention to re-bring that up, that there wasn't, and then people scrambled to figure it out? Maybe there is, I don't know. I'm not saying it was directed at me. I'm saying that we have a Senate subcommittee with a charge, and they provided a document to guide us, and I was not willing to bring it to the Senate, and now it's before the Senate. So what do we do as a Senate when we are expected to fix all the things? That's what I'm wrestling with. Is that a failure of my leadership? Is that a failure of the Senate? Is there places that I am not already seeing that we do need to put pressure on the administration? What is that? Do we need to revisit the syllabus idea? Robbie seems to want to have a resource created. So is that the work of the Senate? Robin? Robin? And then we should adjourn.
Sorry, I was not unmuted. I agree with you and Ellen also that I just can't find where the Senate's job in this is. I mean, I've been on the Senate before, and I've been on the Senate for a while now, and this just, I can't find where our purview is in some of this stuff. But I also I just keep thinking throughout this discussion about how much just really high levels of generalized anxiety everybody is having about returning to campus and what COVID's going to do and what we're going to do in spring and how it's going to be different and all of those things. And just I mean, I've noticed, I'm sure everybody has noticed, a general desire on everybody's part for things to just go away and go back to normal, which isn't going to happen. And I sense in some of these issues, some of that. I also agree that we don't, it isn't necessary to like beat every dead horse, like the food issue or things like that, or have a Senate resolution on every, you know, on food service or things like that. So again, I'm not sure what the Senate is supposed to do about some of it. But in terms of the absences discussion, I just keep thinking, haven't we all always dealt with students who needed to have a lengthy absence for a variety of reasons? And why, I'm wondering why this is so confusing for us now. in my class, I know exactly what is possible for a student who misses 3 weeks of class. And in the case of my instruction and my subject matter, now I have even more resources to think over when a student says they're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Like I do now have the possibility of offering them online support and online opportunities to make up, but that's my discipline. And so a blanket rule is not, as we already discussed, is not going to work for all disciplines. It still very much needs to be the purview of the instructor and the discipline. And so I can't see where we go with this that makes anybody happy.
Well, one of the things I offered to this committee on Friday was some of what you said, Robin, which was, I think we all need to recognize that we're still teaching through a pandemic and there is no right answer here. And we're not going to find a solution that fits everybody. And that a lot of this should be dealt with over a cup of coffee, quite literally. And that's where I went with the FIG, right? So if faculty need to explore this and discuss this, then faculty have a need to discuss this, and it can be done over a cup of coffee or something more formalized on the campus as a FIG, or just amongst the department, right? But I feel like we came to that conclusion as a Senate. And so as Ruth said previously, as senators, we need to share that out, I think, and say, we need to dialogue around this. You know, maybe everybody has I know in-service doesn't happen prior to the start of the spring semester anymore, but maybe people can schedule their department meetings before it, or not. I mean, and maybe this is why I'm being so nonchalant around this, and maybe it's because I taught in a hybrid scenario this semester, but, you know, I mean, I'll figure it out on a case-by-case scenario. That is what equity is, giving, you know, one student what they may need for a particular situation and just addressing things as they come. I get that that makes people anxious, but that is part of what we do all the time, right? So there have been things that have been produced to kind of help this, so that students can't just say, oh, I have COVID, similar to how everybody's grandmother used to die around test time. And you just work it out as we go. But therein lies the sticking point for faculty. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with that, but it seems as though many aren't. And I keep hearing that we don't want to return to campus until this stuff is figured out. So what does that mean? Trisha, and then I think that we absolutely should adjourn.
Okay, so just 3 things. One, I don't think I've heard anybody saying we want a blanket, you know, policy or a statement that everyone has to do the same thing, except that we want to make sure that the blanket statement would be that faculty are aware that they need to be explicit with their students, because all the norms and expectations from the past several years that relate to policy kind of went out the window of a lot of areas. So I'm thinking from a student-centered point of view. If I was a student and I'm taking an English class and that instructor is allowing me to, you know, do miss 3 weeks and make it up, but then my math class is not, you know, maybe their students, they need to be more explicitly informed. And the only thing that I'm kind of hearing from this is that, you know, just, tell our faculty that you need to be explicit, because what you may think is obvious or a norm or expectation may not be that way for students anymore, because of what happened the last 2 years. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, I think that we should be very explicit setting expectations for our students. I think that that is incredibly important. So yeah, on that note, that will be something that Dr. Kathy Scott and I try and convey in an email. Like I said, we already had it drafted. Truth be told, I'm a little bit worried about how it will land with faculty, because I feel as though that some will feel as though the email is not nearly enough, that it doesn't exactly explain what this looks like. And I feel as though others are going to say that what we say in this email is entirely too heavy-handed and not student-centered at all. But I understand the need for communication around this and some direction, and so we will provide it to the best of our ability very soon, literally like within the next day or two, as Kathy and I make sure that all the commas are in the right places. And we hope that faculty continue to engage in this important conversation as everyone prepares for the spring. So I think on that note, we absolutely need to end. It's time for my weekly Los Agaves order. I hope everybody has a really amazing and restful break. We all deserve it and need it. And happy holidays for those of you that are celebrating. And Franny's ending our meeting as she does.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye, baby.
Say bye, new baby. Say bye.
Bye, new baby. Bye, Franny.
Bye, everyone. Have a good break.
Bye, everybody.